What's going on, guys? So for those of you that are new to the channel, I'm Caleb Srackangast. This is Buffalo Creek Outdoors. For the ones that have been watching the channel, you know what I'm about to say. I'm up here at Grafton Archery again, doing the bow reviews for 2024. And today's review is probably one of my favorite bows to date of the 2024 bows. And it's the new Bowtech Core SR. All right, guys, so if you've seen my stuff as of recently, you know that I've really wanted to go to a shorter bow this year because of the aspect of having that. I've been shooting a RX-7 Ultra, going up steep, going down steep, backcountry elk hunting especially. I noticed that my cams kept dragging the ground. Top cam when I was going uphill, bottom cam when I was going downhill. It's basically because I'm short, and I had a long bow, and it's super steep terrain. But because of that, and just being able to maneuver in the thick stuff, I wanted to go to a shorter bow. However, bows like this Core SR, it's a 33-inch bow, and for whatever reason, it just seems like it fits me. I like this bow. Before we go too deep into how I think, or what I like and dislike about the bow, let's talk about the specs and what you can expect and where this bow might fit in your decision making on a bow this year. So specs wise, like I said, this is the Bowtech Core SR. I can't remember what the SR stands for, but it's essentially their more speed driven bow this year. Axle to axle, 33 inches. Brace height, 6 inches. Bow weight, like I always say, the manufacturers weigh these bows with nothing on them, including the little vibration dampeners. With that being said, without the vibration dampeners, these bows, for all the new bows, they're designed to shoot with these vibration dampeners in the riser. When you take them off, they do not shoot the same, and they don't shoot very good at all, in my opinion. They feel like tuning forks without them compared to what they do feel like with the vibration dampeners still in the riser. So what I wish these bow manufacturers would do, all of them, not just Bowtech, I wish they would weigh the bow with what it's got on it that it's designed to shoot with. If it's designed to shoot with these vibration dampeners, leave the vibration dampeners on it and weigh it. But off my soapbox, 4.5 pounds is what Bowtech says this bow weighs. The available draw weights, 50, 60, and 70 in 10-pound increments. So if you buy 50, you should be able to get it down to around 40. And same with the 60 and the 70. With that being said, bows generally shoot more efficiently and shoot better at their upper end of whatever they're set to draw. So if it's a 70-pound bow, but you only want to shoot 60 pounds, you'd be better off to buy a 60 and shoot it maxed out. Speed, this bow is rated at 344. Draw length, 25 to 30 inches. This is a great sweet spot for guys like myself. You'll see where I get a little bit more speed out of a bow that's like this than I did out of the Core SS. Let off, I couldn't find on the website or on any of the badging or any of the manuals or anything, I couldn't figure out what the actual let off was on this cam. I'm assuming if it's like any of the Bowtechs in the past, it's probably between like that 80 and 90, probably more between 85 and 90, if I had to guess. But it's got a decent amount of let off. It's not an adjustable let off. However, you can, if you really want to finagle with your let off, you can adjust the stops. You can mess with the stops and the mods to get more or less let off. I don't recommend that because it's designed to shoot where the manufacturer has it set. So what you can do, if you adjust the mod and stop in order to get more let off, what you end up doing is there's a good chance that you can lock that bow out. So that bow will actually get locked out at full draw. We used to have this issue a lot years ago with Bowtechs in particular. but you'll actually draw back and that thing will lock and you won't be able to get it back down. Vice versa, if you adjust it the other way, then your your let off will be less, and it's essentially more like shooting a target bow. Doing the adjustment this way also changes your draw length, so just keep that in mind. It's something that I don't really recommend doing. Some people do it. Cam, this thing has the Deadlock SR cam. I actually prefer this cam to the SS, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. Colors, this thing comes in 11 options, but you can also get custom colors. It's just, I'm pretty sure it's an upcharge just like all the other brands. But there are options if you want to do like a solid riser, camo limbs, or camo riser, solid limbs. You can change some stuff around. So let's talk about some of the technology on this bow. Center mass sight technology. This is brand new this year, and as of right now, Black Gold is the only sight brand that has an option to fit this. So this is very similar to the bridge lock technology that Matthews has, but this system to me seems like it's a little bit more fine-tuned and a little bit more exact, I should say. Anyway, the way the sight goes in, there's like this little boss inside the riser. Sight slides in, there's a screw that threads through the sight into the riser of the bow, and it locks it into that position. It's a pretty sweet system. I'm sure throughout the years, eventually somebody else will start making sights that fit this, but as of right now, Black Gold is the only sight company that makes one that fits this. All right, so going from there, you've also got what they call their time lock system. So what this is if you look at the cams, top and bottom, there's a little place and it's labeled time locked. There's a set screw on top and bottom. You take the set screw out, loosen it, take an Allen wrench. There's a thread screw down inside of the little, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's the tier that the cables connect to, but I don't know what you want to call that little module that moves up and down. But what it is normally when you have a bow that's out of time, you got to put the bow in the press, run it down, remove a cable, one end of a cable, tighten it, and put it back together, draw it back, check it, whatever. And what you have to do is you want to, like, say your top cam's hitting first, you'll move the opposite cable, whatever, however you need to do it to make it work, but you have to actually take one end of the cable loose. And in order to do that, you have to have it in a press. What Bowtech has done is they've allowed you to actually move the ends of these cables one way up or down, both sides, in order to do the same thing without having to twist your cables and without having to put the bow in the press. It's a pretty cool little system. You also have what they call, like the name of the cam, the deadlock system, which allows you to actually shift your cam right or left in order to mitigate your right or left tears in your paper tune. What this allows you to do is actually move the cam without putting the bow in the press. You don't have to put the shims in. It's a very sweet system. They've had it for several years. If you've seen my reviews in the past, you know that I don't typically care for all the additional adjustments and screws and everything else. And I'm still the same way, but I'm going to change how I rate this, and we'll talk about that here in just a second when we get to how I scored this bow. I don't typically care for all the extra screws and everything because the type of hunting that I do, I always worry that something's going to come loose or fall out or whatever it may be and really screw me on a shot of a lifetime. So that's kind of how I've kind of hit on or bashed on Bowtech's adjustments in the past. I'm not going to do that this year. It is an extremely adjustable bow. Talking about adjustments, you also have what they're calling the deadlock or dual lock pockets, which what that ends up doing is you can actually lock down your pockets. So in order to adjust your draw weight, your main limb bolt here has a set screw on the side that actually sandwiches your riser, pinches your riser onto your limb pocket, and that really just locks everything together. You also have on these newer bows what they call their grip lock, which I actually really like. Out of the bows this year, the Bowtech has had my favorite grip. I like to shoot off the riser predominantly on the bows that I shoot. And this grip on this bow feels like I'm shooting off the riser, and I like that it's just a very rounded, it's the back of it's not rounded, but like the whole grip in general is just very smooth. It works out really nicely for what I like in a grip. But this year they have 2 set screws on it, one on each side, that allows you to actually move the grip in or out for like if you want a high risk grip or whatever, you can adjust that to get it exactly where you want it, which is a really nice feature. Flip discs. Well, you'll notice when I start talking about speeds and how I scored this bow, I'm actually going to have multiple numbers. And the reason behind that is I shot this bow in comfort and I shot this bow in performance. And I wanted to score both. But you have a flip disc on these things where it's set in comfort right now, which is where I would prefer to shoot it. You can also flip the disc and go to performance. And all it is Bowtech has these cams etched with your draw length. There's a post on the mod that fits into whatever draw length you choose. That post fits in there, and then it's got 3 screws that tighten it down. They're Allen head screws. If you choose to flip that disc to performance, you're going to want to make sure you do top and bottom the same. You don't want to do one in comfort, one in performance. You want to have them both the same. But either way you flip these things, there's a post that goes in, and then you just adjust your to your draw length, whatever you want. It has a stop on top and bottom for your cables, and these stops are also etched with whatever your draw length is, so it's pretty self-explanatory for the guys that want to tinker on their bows. Maybe you're off by 1/2 inch or whatever. That is one thing. These bows aren't 1/4 inch adjustable like some of the other bows. That's the only ding I've got on tunability. They do not have the 1/4 inch adjustments. But in most cases, you can twist your string. Once you'll have to have a press to do that. But there are ways to adjust your draw length by the 1/4 inch, even without having that adjustment in your cams. So let's go ahead and shoot it. I'll let you see how the draw cycle is, listen to the bow, and we'll go from there. I love the draw cycle on this bow. Back wall is very nice. It's pretty quick. It's not the fastest bow that I've tested this year, but it's definitely by no means the slowest either. So let's draw it back again. And let's let it down and do the hunting check. It's got a very deep valley. You really have to just ease down. It's hard to let down on this bow because it has such a deep valley. It's going to be super hard. Right there's where it drops off. Not a whole lot, but when you go to let down, you can definitely tell that you're in that valley of that draw cycle. All right, let's shoot a couple more times. Bow feels very balanced in my hand. There's ever so slightly just a little bit of hand shock and a little vibration, but it dissipates extremely fast. Trying to think of what I could compare this bow to. It almost has its own feel. Like the Core SS is super smooth. This is more of their speed performance type bow, but it doesn't feel like a speed and performance type bow. Now, when you put this bow into performance, you're going to get about 10 feet a second faster out of it at each respective draw length, but I don't think it's worth the stiffness. Like when you put this bow in performance, the draw cycle is completely different. And it is very, very aggressive, in my opinion. It kind of reminds me of the draw cycle What was the name of that Bowtech? The Insanity, I want to say. If any of you guys shot that bow, or like maybe say like an Omen, like a PSE Omen, when you draw back, it's like right in there. It's just like you got to really dig to get over that hump. Whereas this is pretty smooth all the way back. Do one more shot, and then we'll talk about how I scored this bow. This bow feels really, really good. So let's talk about how I scored this thing. So shootability, you got a 33-inch axle to axle, you got a 6-inch brace height. Should be a very shootable bow. As far as a hunting bow goes, like when I say a shootable bow, these are not numbers compared to target bows. So don't think that's going to be an excellent target bow. We're going off of shootability for hunting ranges, and these are just for strictly this is for a hunting bow, choosing a hunting bow. Tunability, like I've talked about in the past, I don't particularly care for all the screws and all the adjustments on my hunting bow. With that being said, I'm not going to ding them anymore on how tunable the bow is. Tunability wise, it's a 10. Best tunability on the market, hands down. Bowtech, they have it as far as the adjustments that are available without putting the bow in a press, the ease of adjustment, the speed of adjustment. They've got that pretty much locked down, just like their name says, the deadlock system. But like I said, not my preference. A lot of guys love it. A lot of guys have had great results with it. Nothing's came loose. It just worries me being way back in there, having all the extra adjustments on this bow, that something's going to come loose and I'm not going to realize it. With that being said, my preference would be something that's a little bit more rugged, a little bit more crude, if you should, like, for with a lack of a better word or lack of a better term, like a crude adjustment. So like the Matthews and the Hoyts have just the shim system. You have to press it. They're a lot less adjustable without a press, but you can essentially do the same adjustments. You just have to have a press to do it. But the option is there. So if you like that, these bows are great for tunability without a press. Draw cycle. Gave the bow an 8. It's got excellent draw cycle. I really, really like the draw cycle on the Core SR. It's been one of my favorite draw cycles as far as my personal preference in a hunting bow. You have a good mix of speed, but smoothness in the draw. Now, when you put it in performance, completely different animal. I did not care for the draw cycle in performance, but that's just me. If you like an aggressive draw, then this might be the bow for you. But I gave it a 3 in performance. I didn't notice, you got about 10 feet a second difference in each respective draw length with each arrow, but to me it wasn't worth the aggressiveness that you gained in the draw cycle. Noise and vibration, gave the bow a 7. Did have a little bit of hand shock, a little bit of vibration, but it dissipates extremely fast. Speed, I gave this bow a 6 in comfort and a 7 in performance. It wasn't the fastest bow that I've tested, but it definitely wasn't the slowest either, especially in performance. It was more towards the top 2 or 3 bows that I've tested. But none of the bows that I've tested so far this year have just been this outrageous speed demon, so I gave this bow a 7. Balance. I thought the SR balanced better in my hand than the SS. I gave it an 8. Back wall, I gave it an 8 in both. In the SS, it seemed like I had a difference in back wall on the comfort versus performance. This one, I didn't feel that. It felt like it was essentially the same. And before you say the SS was out of time, no, it wasn't. I timed it with the what do they call the time lock? They got so many locks on this bow. The time lock system, I actually timed that bow. I did not have to do that with the SR, but I did with the SS. Weight, I gave the bow a 7, slightly lighter than like the Hoyts in that class, which is probably the closest competitor as far as top of the line bow, roughly the same axle to axle and that type of thing. I gave it a 7. Fit and finish, I gave it an 8, and I'll hopefully have it linked, or I have this video pop up here on the screen. There's a couple weird things on the finish on this bow. I dinged it a little bit on the finish. If you don't look at it super close, it looks great from a distance, but when you look at it up close, there's definitely some things that I would like to see fixed on these bows. So I gave it an 8. Price, gave it a 5. This bow is a little over $1,300, $1,349, I think, something like that. Don't quote me on that price, but I know it's around that 13 mark. So I gave it a 5, and that's how I wound up with my totals. So that's pretty much it, guys. Things that I liked and things that I disliked. So this bow balanced well. I think this is a really good area for a bow as far as length for most people in most situations. Like I said, I really want to go away from a longer, and these aren't, I say longer, not long. These aren't long bows, but they are longer bows. I wanted to go to something shorter around that 30-inch mark this year, but bows like this are making it really hard for me to make that switch. I'm still trying to decide which bow I'm going to shoot for the 2024 season, but this is definitely going to be one of the contenders in that. And this will be probably the first Bowtech in a really long time that I've actually really enjoyed shooting. One of my hesitations, once again, is what the benefits that this bow has is also one of the things that I don't like, and that's all the adjustments on this bow. Yes, it's nice when you're initially tuning your bow. It is extremely nice, best in the business. But once your bow is tuned, and you have this thing set up to hunt with, you don't need all these adjustments. And if you plan on buying a bow and keeping a bow for a long time, really the only thing that you should run into is your strings and cables stretching just slightly. And if that happens, a lot of these adjustments aren't useful because your strings and cables stretch, and you need to take and put your bow in a press, put some twist back in your strings and cables, or if it's the fact that they've stretched because they're old and they need to be replaced, then you need to replace your strings and cables. You're going to have a press anyway. So a lot of these adjustments are extremely nice initially, but barring like tweaking your system over and over and over again, you're really not going to use these once you have your bow set. So in my case, I have a press available. I have the skill to adjust my bows. It's not as valuable to me as it may be to some of you guys that don't have a press and want to tinker on your own bows. So that's just something to keep in mind. I really like this bow, guys. Like I said, I think it's going to be a great hunting bow this year for a lot of people. This bow is going to be better for your shorter draw length guys as far as speeds go than the SS will be, because the SS is designed to go up to 31 inches. So keep these speeds and stuff in mind. Like when I talk about the speeds that I got on my chrono, I'm testing all these bows with the same chronograph. So these numbers might not match what you're getting in a chronograph or what somebody else is getting in a chronograph, but what it does is you can look back at all my videos and say, okay, he got this speed with XYZ bow, and he got this speed with ABC bow. And you can compare those speeds together and say, okay, if I bought this bow and I shot it at this draw length, I should expect to shoot a little bit faster or slower than whatever other bow that you're looking at. So keep that in mind when I talk about my speeds. They're not exacts. That's just what I got. You can get something completely different with a different chronograph. So just keep that in mind. But like I said, guys, I'm really impressed with this Bowtech Core SR. It's my favorite bow so far that I've shot from Bowtech this year, and it is definitely still a contender for the bow that I'm going to shoot for 2024. Like I always say, guys, if you got any questions, don't hesitate to comment down below. Ask me. If I can help you, I will. If you want to call these guys up here at Grafton, it's 704-855-1300. They'll be more than happy to help you with anything archery related. They're awesome dudes. Come up here and support their store. Support the channel by commenting down below, liking and subscribing. Thank my wife for letting me come up here and do these videos. If you enjoy watching them, because she's the one that deals with me coming in at 12:30. I came in at 12:30 this morning from work, and then I got up at 5 and came up here. So she deals with that, and she's always been a champ for that. So thank her down below. If you like these videos, a lot of it's because of her. So thanks for watching, guys. Remember to live your life to the fullest and use your passions to bless others. We'll catch you on the next video.